Hey Presby family, Pastor Andrew here. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday afternoon. I wanted to reach out to you with some encouragement from God's Word today. If you've been paying attention to what's going on in our culture right now, there's a lot of need for God's encouragement. Because what's happening right now is we see anger, we see division, we see all this pent-up rage and fury that has been searching for an outlet. And in so many different aspects of life. We see distress, we see hopelessness, we see turmoil, and we see confusion. And so in the midst of circumstances like what is happening around us right now, God's Word speaks. And it speaks words of hope and blessing to God's people. I want to share with you some familiar words of Jesus Christ given during his Sermon on the Mount. And these words, we refer to them as the Beatitudes, but really they are words of blessing and hope that Jesus pronounces over you. Jesus starts off by saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Poor in spirit, this refers to those who recognize that on their own they are not enough. It refers to those of us who recognize that we need God, that we are spiritually impoverished without him. And if that's you, if that describes you, if you recognize ways that you fall short of God's mark, if you mourn the sinfulness and the spiritual blindness in your own life, if you find yourself often crying out for Jesus to continue to make you into a new person, then this blessing is for you. Jesus says, yours is the kingdom of heaven. And that's not just an abstract future kingdom. That is a kingdom that is already present in the here and now. That even as you are crying out for something better, Jesus says, my kingdom is here and you are a part of this. Pay attention and open your eyes for what I am about to do in you and through you. In verse 4, Jesus goes on to say, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And there's a lot of mourning happening in our world right now. Mourning over the effects of COVID-19, mourning over the deaths of those who have perished as a result of COVID-19 and related conditions, mourning for those whose lives have been wrongfully taken. We're reminded of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and of George Floyd and so many others who remind us of the hurt and the pain that has been inflicted over the course of time because of the role that racism has played in our society. There are good reasons for us to mourn that. And there are also good reasons for us to mourn the rage and the violence, the chaos, turmoil, and division that we see happening around us. There are also other things to mourn. Maybe you're mourning those things. Maybe you find that you are mourning something else, something that may be between you and the Lord. But whatever it is, Jesus says to you, blessed are you, O mourner, and you will be comforted. Verse 5 says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that meekness is pretty hard to find in our world. We're a world that seems to be fueled by certainty, that seems to be fueled by audacious claims, by power, by authority, by control. And yet in the midst of this, Jesus speaks in favor of those who are meek, those perhaps whose voices haven't been heard, those who may be afraid to speak up, those who, when they do speak with quiet stillness and humility. Friends, there is a lot of noise around us right now. The world does not need more noise. It doesn't need more anger. It doesn't need more people saying, this is the problem, now let's fix it in this particular way that happens to line up with my agenda. It needs people who are willing to be humble, to listen, to serve, and to recognize the image of God in those around them. Blessed are those people, for they will inherit the earth. In verse 6, Jesus says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And I hope you're feeling this hunger and this thirst right now. This hunger and thirst for righteousness can come in different ways. It could be for your own personal righteousness, for your desire to be right in the eyes of God, for your desire to live a life that is holy and blameless. Blessed are you if you hunger for that. The word for righteousness here is the same word that the Bible uses for justice. So maybe you're hungering for justice to be done in your life and in the lives of those around you. Maybe you're hungering for the world to look more the way that God intended it to be. And so if that's your hunger, Jesus says, blessed are you, this hunger will be filled. Verse 7 says, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Mercy is another trait that's hard to find in our vindictive, vitriolic world that we live in. But Jesus says there is a better road to take, the road of mercy, recognizing that we are all broken, that we are all flawed, that we are all deserving of God's judgment in our lives, but that God is a God not only of justice, but also of mercy. We have been forgiven of so much, so let us be people of mercy, carrying that forgiveness and that hope for new life to other people. The next verse says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart. This is an opportunity for us to examine our hearts, to look at the state of our hearts before God. Are we driven by pride? Are we driven by other motivations? Are we in it for the wrong reasons? This is an opportunity for us to confess, for us to want to seek God's will done for his reasons and not because of our ulterior motives or hidden agendas. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And I don't think this is talking about just in an eternal sense. When your heart becomes more pure before him, you are enabled. It's like the scales fall from your eyes and you can see him around you in new ways in your day-to-day life. Blessed are you, for you shall see God. Verse 9 says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. We live in a world that is in dire need of peacemakers. Our natural human tendency is toward division, toward violence, toward chaos and unrest. But Jesus calls us to do something different. He calls us to work for peace. And this is hard. This takes tremendous effort and tremendous work. And so peacemaking, we may think of peace as something that's passive. But as we talked about in our sermon yesterday, peace is more than just the absence of conflict. It is flourishing. It is justice. It is wholeness. It is life as God intended. And this takes tremendous effort. We are to wage peace with the same level of dedication and of commitment and active work that we see so many other people using as they wage war and conflict. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And then Jesus says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is a time when there is a need, friends, for us as God's people to step forward as we stand upon God's word and as we work toward justice and righteousness in the world around us. We will find that the world is going to push back as we stand up, as we speak up, as we seek to follow God. There will be those who will oppose us. There will be those who misunderstand us. There will be those who may say that we are on the wrong side of history. There may be those who think that we are doing and saying things that are offensive to them and others. And may that not be true. If we are offensive, let it be because we are following God and not just being offensive. But this tells us, this encourages us that as we are seeking Jesus, we will find opposition. But in the midst of that opposition, we are blessed because ours is the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, he says, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And then Jesus goes on in the verses that follow to talk about the call for his followers to be salt and light in a world that so desperately needs it. And friends, that call, that invitation extends to us today. We are to be the light in a dark world. We are to be salt in a world that needs that divine flavor. And as we do these things, friends, it will be difficult. There will be struggles. But in the midst of a world that is so deeply torn, Jesus calls us not to flee from the chaos for our own safety, but to follow him into that chaos, that we might speak his words of love, peace, comfort, hope, and righteousness. And friends, that is where God calls us to be. That is our mandate, to be a counterculture of blessing in the midst of the upheaval that we see around us. This is our call, to bring joy to our city and to our world.